last century and a half, no other game has reflected the history, spirit, and imagination of American life quite like baseball. Played and viewed from childhood on, from our parks and schools to our major league stadiums, baseball remains the national pastime, the American dream. Hi, I'm Pat Murphy, head coach, University of Notre Dame baseball. As coaches, athletic directors, and recreation leaders, we provide a great opportunity for America's young people to experience the excitement of baseball, the lessons of good sportsmanship and teamwork, the satisfaction of knowing you played your best. Part of our job is to see that the tools of baseball, bats, balls, gloves, and protective gear, are kept in a condition to take on the challenge of the game. But too often, one very important piece of equipment is taken for granted, the playing field. All-field maintenance is a responsibility that goes far beyond making the field look good. The condition of both the skinned areas and the turf can determine the quality of the game, and even more critical, the safety of every player who steps out on the field. As you view this video, consider the requirements and means of your sports program. What kind of play is involved? What past problems have you experienced? Do special uses or circumstances place extra demands on your field? What manpower and equipment is available for your field maintenance? Today, with a little help from a few professionals, we're going to share some practical solutions to bringing your field back to life and keeping it that way. And best of all is that this video will make it possible for you to maintain your field properly with as little as a half hour of work each day. To begin, I'd like to introduce three experts on the subject, professional groundskeepers, formerly from the Yankees, Ed Miller, formerly from the San Francisco Giants, Barney Barron, and Ken Maroc, the head groundskeeper of the Chicago Bears. Walking the field every day is the most important part of field maintenance. We'll start here on the mound and take us to home plate, around the baselines, onto the infield surface, and later the outfield. We will then finish up with some general maintenance information to help make your job easier. Along with this video is a companion brochure that covers the same topics and has more detail. You may want to have it handy while watching this video. Ed, you're up.
Thanks, Pat. Let's start with the pitching mound, because the game can be won or lost on this very important real estate. As you can see, this pitching mound has been torn up pretty good from practice in the weather. I'm going to walk you through the steps on mound reconstruction, and then later on we'll show the daily maintenance procedures. First thing we do is to check the height of the pitching rubber, making sure that the top of the rubber is a major league standard of 10 inches above home plate. You should always double check that the rubber is at the proper distance from the home plate. For major leagues, it's 60 feet 6 inches. Next, we'll remove the rubber and replace it with a new one. Mark, you want to get out in front and start digging this rubber out for me? You dig out in front of the rubber, and we'll move along and just go ahead and dig it right down in there. You know, we won't baby this thing. Okay. All right, it's ready to come out now. Mark, you want to see if we can lift it out real easy? And, all right. Now, as you can see, after we've got the old rubber out, we can see exactly where it goes back in, and we've left the walls and the sides so that when we put the new one back in, it'll go back into the same spot, and we know we got it right. Then it's just a matter of leveling it off. Okay, Mark, let's smooth the area out first before we put the new rubber in. Take your hand and just smooth it out in there. Get those big clumps out of the way. And give us a little level in there if you can. Okay, let's take the new rubber and let's see if we can set it in there. Okay, now as you can see, we're using a four-sided rubber. It's hollow in the middle. And we fill that with clay to give it that little extra weight. I need the carpenter level. Now what you want to do here, we'll see what we got. This is very important, that the rubber is level, so it's got to go down quite a bit on the side. So you can tamp it down a little bit on the ends. Real easy. A little more. Okay, let's check it again. This is what takes the time. Now if you give that a little love tap, we've got it right on the nose. In that direction. That's good. Let's try that one. Oh, that's right on the money. Now let's see how we got it this way. We want to check in both directions. The old rubber we took out of here was leaning real bad to the front. Okay. So I'll try and hold this, and you try to tamp the front of it down a little bit. So I'll try to hold it in place. Okay. All right. All right, very nice. Now, next thing I want to do, Mark, is take some of the patching clay and let's fill it all around the rubber and we'll pack it in. We'll fill this all around and fill it in and we'll tamp it down and add to it as we need it. Just take your shovel as you push it in, take the shovel and kind of push it, tuck it in underneath so it gets underneath it, all right. There you go. And we'll rake all this old stuff out of the way, rake it in the pile and we'll get rid of it. Keep working it down with your shovel, Mark. The tamping, we'll try to tamp it down, being very careful not to hit the rubber itself. Okay. Okay, we got that in place. We know it's level in both directions. It should have stayed that way because I know we didn't hit it. Okay, the next step we're going to do is build a plateau in the reconstruction. So if you gentlemen would bring that up and we'll put it around the pitching rubber. And what I'm going to do is set it off and we're measuring it. We're going to go 6 inches from the front of the rubber to the front. This box is 3 feet by 5 feet inside measurements. So we're going to give it 6 inches here in the front. All right, a little more. Hold it, hold it. I'm used to having a hammer or something with me. This is just a rough. Then we'll go 18 inches on the sides. Okay, back a little more. Okay, we got over here, 18 over here, and we should have 2 feet in the back. Now the next step, what I'm going to do is take this nail and scaff fire the frame out to give me a guideline for the next step. Okay, gentlemen, now we can lift that off. As you can see, I've got the frame all marked out. Now the next step, what we're going to do is take the pick and we're going to stay inside that area and loosen all that material up like we had done when we were patching the mounds and stuff before. Just stay right in there and just loosen it up. Now, Mark is loosening all this material up, so when we put the new patching clay in there, they'll bond together. Normally where you can't pick along the edges, I would have a bigger square shovel just to do the edges. And I'd go all the way around the edge like that with a larger square shovel. You got it picked out pretty good. All right, now, gentlemen, if we'll take the box, we got it all loosened up now. We put the new material in, it's all going to bond together. Now, if we take the box and put it back on there again, we should see the lines. But as a pro, we measure it just to be double sure. Everything has to be on the money. Okay. All right, it's 18 over there. It should be 18 here. Should be 2 over here. All right, well, very good. Now, if you'll get me some clay out of that wheelbarrow and put it in there, we'll use this little level and put it inside the box and we'll level it out all the way around so it's level with the pitching rubber. All right, let's hold it right there for a minute, Mark. This. Give me some more material over here, please. What I'm going to do now is use the tamp. And while I'm tamping, mark whatever I'm doing in this corner, if you will kind of stand with your feet up on the board so it doesn't move as I'm tamping it, okay? I just hold 1 foot, give me the room to get in the corner there. Now we'll just go around the edges. And we'll tamp it very lightly, and then we'll have to probably add some more clay to it. When we get in this front part where you only got 6 inches, and you're tamping it down, be very careful for the simple reason the tamp is on top of the rubber, and you might get it off from where we had it all balanced out. So be very careful. Okay, gentlemen, if we can lift that off of there very carefully. Let me kind of stand with the rake just in case. Hold it. Okay, lift it up real easy. All right. That's pretty good. And there we finished that plateau. You can see some of it is broken down just a little bit, but that's not bad. This box frame that we used to build this plateau, there's only one other guy that I know used this in the pros, and that was Harry Gill from the Milwaukee Brewers. It's a big time saver. Now the next step we're going to do is rebuild the front of this mound with the heavy clay patching. What I'm going to do is make a line as to how I want, as far as I want to go to the sides with it. And the reason I'm going out that wide is for the simple reason when the pitcher's on the mound and he's got a base runner up here and he makes a move to first base, you want to have solid ground for him to put his foot down. And we do it on both sides. So what we're going to do now is to dig this whole area up, loosen it up, as we did on the top of the mound. So when we put our new clay in, it'll bond together, and then we'll take the next step. All right, now we've got to the point now we've dug the mound up. We've got our plateau built, and now we're going to get ready to add the new clay and shape the mound out. So, Mark, if you'll come up there with this 2x4 up on the plateau, and Bill with the other 2x4, and he's putting it up on top of this smaller 2x4, and the reason we're doing that, normally we used to put it down here on the edge of the plateau, and when we started working the material, it would have a tendency to break this off and make it fall, so then I put this 2x4 up on top, so that this would ride up on top of this and not the plateau to break it down. Okay, now we've got the 2x4s in place. We've got one end on the edge of the grass and one up here on top of the plateau. We'll add the clay and build it up in front of the 2x4. As you can see, this mound needs quite a bit. So just drop it up there in piles. And we're going to work it the same way you've seen guys working concrete with the 2x4 when they're building sidewalks or a garage. They just work it back and forth. We're going to use the same principle. Tell you what, it'd probably be faster if you just took the wheelbarrow and just dumped it over here. For large areas like this, normally you either bring it in with a wheelbarrow, or if you got a Cushman scooter, that you can load the material up and put it all across, and so you can have plenty of material on hand. Now if you can just take that and bring it right up against, bring the rake or the shovel, whichever, and bring it right up to the 2x4. Give yourself plenty of material. Take your hand and work it right up so you get more material. We need some more from down there. All right, now let's start working it back and forth. If it starts getting too heavy for you and starts building up a little bit too much, take your hand and push it away. Push it away a little bit, Mark, if it's too heavy for you. This is a very slow process, but the best way I know how to shape it up. That's it. Just keep working it along. Now if you find yourself going along, sometimes you get clay that has big clumps in it like this, and if you come along and the clumps are wet, a lot of times the board will go over and it'll pass and it'll leave a hole behind it. I suggest you stop, get rid of the clump, go back, and work yourself forward again. Hold it. Now go back because you got a low spot there where you don't have any material. Take your board back a little bit. There you go. Work a little bit in there. Always keep the material in front of it. You don't have any low spots. Okay. Keep working your board out toward the grass now, Bill. Don't get it up too far. Okay. We'll let these gentlemen continue on building the mound the way they're going. They'll do it all the way around, and it should shape up this way here. What we're using is a special type of packing clay. You can check with some of your soil companies or brick yards, pick up this type of material. We will go if the tamp, to give you a couple little hints here at the tamp. After these gentlemen get it down, they'll go with the tamp and tamp it in very lightly. Another tip too, a lot of times the clay will stick to the tamp. And a couple of solutions to solve that is to either take a piece of a plastic bag and wire it on the bottom of the tamp, or you can take a burlap bag that's a little bit moist, and that'll keep the clay from sticking to the tamp. Just a couple of little hints. Another little hint too, we don't have it here, but in front of the pitching rubber, you notice we got it built up pretty much close to the top. But many years ago, pitcher Tommy Johns gave me a little hint. He said, Ed, if you keep that just about a half inch below the edge of that rubber, he said, you'll find that pitchers won't have a tendency to dig a deep hole in front of that rubber. And I found it to be very true. Just that little bit of a half an inch in front of that pitching rubber, where that pitcher can see that little bit of white down there, and he won't have a tendency to dig, because then he can see that and he figures he got just a little bit of more stuff to push off of, and you'll find it works. I know I found it to work. Now, let's move ourselves to home plate and we'll do a little bit of work there. Now let's replace home plate. The steps are very similar to replacing the pitching rubber. First, we'll take the pick and pick out in front of the home plate. And we put the nail in. You can see the nail back there. Jim, if you want to point that nail out for us as a point of reference. So in case we goof up somewhere along, we've got that point so we know where the point of the plate goes back in again. We'll dig out the front. And we'll dig out along one side. And we'll lift out the plate very carefully, having someone stand on the points so that we keep the edges from breaking down. There you go, very nice and easy. Easy, easy, easy. Lift it out. All right, stand back off the edges so you don't break them down. And you can see we've left the frame of where the home plate will go right back in again. Now after the plate has been removed, and before we install a new one, we want to clean out the area and level it out by using a little packing clay. Jim? That's it. Just a little bit in there where that little low place that hole was there. That's good. And now we'll put the new plate in. I want to show you how the reference nail, came in to be so important. Now, Jim, if I can get you to take the level, and we get this home plate level in both directions. Very important to have these things level. That looks pretty good, Jim. Okay, after we've got this in now, what we will do is we'll take some packing clay and put it around and tamp it back in again, and be sure we got it built to the correct height. Now that we've finished installing the home plate and finished with the pitching mound, there's one very important point I want to bring to your attention, and that is the importance of covering the home plate area and the pitching mound when it's not in use. That's to keep the loose clay from washing out into the turf areas and creating a lot more work for yourself. So let's take a walk down the baseline.
Make the turn. Watch the ball in front of you. Make the turn.
Let's talk about the baseline. There are a couple of key things to keep in mind. First, unlike other areas of the infield, keep the baselines firm. This allows your base runner to get down the baselines more quickly. Second, rake your baselines in a long direction. No side to side. Side to side, kick the dirt into the turf areas. Third, maintain straight edging using an edger or a spade. The major leagues 3 feet on each side of the baselines. Finally, when laying your chalk lines, be sure that the line is tight and is on the right side of home plate and first base as you look into the outfield. One last subject I want to address with you is a new concept in bases. Well, Pat, I'm glad you're here. We're just getting ready to demonstrate an important concept in bases that coaches may want to consider. we have here this Beacon Sports product, Stay Down Breakaway Base. Breakaway bases help prevent sliding injuries and can be installed in normal base anchors or can be mounted like this model I have here. If this goes in the ground, this space fits in. This is really good for little league kids. Bill's going to demonstrate his slide on this breakaway base. Bill?
I think that's a great concept. I really think coaches should take a look at that. Now let's join Barney on the infield and learn more about maintenance in that area.
A diamond is the focal point of any baseball field because this is where the majority of action takes place. Therefore, we must take steps to put the field in shape so that athletes can perform at their optimal level. Not only do we not want to lose a ball game because of a bad ball hop, but more importantly, we don't want to risk injury to a player. No two infields are alike. However, to a lesser or greater extent, you will find clay as a part of the infield mix. Clay is difficult to wet, and once wet, it's difficult to dry out. I'm sure many of us have experienced watching a clay infield bake, harden, and then break. A hard field is dangerous and causes inconsistent play. A hard clay field can also turn into a mud pit after a heavy rain. Although there is no standard for a mix, we want a mix that allows for firm footing, quick penetration of water, and a true bounce of the ball. Most of you have relied on local materials that are readily available. For the most part, the materials prove adequate on a short-term basis, but over the long run, most of you are forced to replace the mix because of poor drainage, compaction, and wind erosion. An amendment that is used widely because of its aesthetic red color is brick dust. My experiences with this material has been negative. Like crushed granite and limestone infields, brick dust hardens up after a rain, turning the surface very hard. Because brick dust is a byproduct of the brick industry, it was not designed for sports fields. It is truly dusty, blowing into the turf. Inconsistent size particles also contribute to inconsistent play and does little to prevent compaction. There is one ingredient that you will find in most major infield mixes, and that is Turface. Turface was specifically designed for sports fields. Relied on for over 25 years, Turface improves the quality of play by eliminating compaction, improving drainage, providing a consistent play, and reducing wind erosion. Turface is made from a special clay that is processed at over 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. The result is a very stable, porous material that improves your sports fields, allowing your athletes to perform at their highest level. I personally have used Turface for over 13 years at Candlestick and recommend it strongly. Turface mixed into the infield addresses most of the issues we face as groundskeepers and coaches. A hard, compacted field is dangerous to run and slide on. Turface keeps the surface loose and eliminates compaction. Turface helps eliminate inconsistent play. A smooth, consistent surface eliminates bad bounces. A wet field either prevents play or makes it dangerous. Turface absorbs and retains its own weight in water, greatly improving drainage. Note how Turface attracts the water without dissolving or caking, and Turface does not become slippery. Unless it's raining, with Turface your field should be playable when most other games are rained out. Turface makes field maintenance easier by preventing compaction. The field is easier to drag because the surface remains loose. A loose surface also allows you to fill in low spots easily. Turface absorbs its weight in water and slowly releases it. You won't have to water your infield as often, reducing water usage and time. Finally, Turface reduces dusting on the field. Less dusting means play won't be inhibited and you don't have to replace infield mix as often. Most fields need between 12 and 15 tons of Turface in their mix. On a completely skinned softball infield, you would need up to perhaps 20 tons. Because many of us are faced with tight budgets, you may be forced to limit the amount put into your field. Turface is a very stable material that will last the life of your field. Therefore, you can add 2 or 3 tons each year, starting in your worst problem areas until you have built a Turface infield. Preparing a Turface infield with a rototiller can be accomplished as follows. Line the bags on the fields about 42 inches apart. Open the bags. Spread directly over the skinned area of the infield. Level Turface to a depth of 1/2 to 1 inch using any available equipment such as a mat drag, a road planer, or even hand rakes. Use a hose to moisten. Rototill to a depth of 3 to 4 inches. Level it again with a coarse drag to break up the material. Use a hose to moisten the rototilled area. If a 1-ton roller is available, roll the surface until it is firm. If a roller is not available, repeated watering and dragging will compact the infield to the desired firmness. Finally, drag the entire area twice using a mat drag. A Turface infield, when completed, should be loose for the top quarter of an inch. And in the words of Spec Richardson, the infield should look as if a bunch of chickens had just walked across it. If you do not have the equipment we have just discussed, you can still install Turface using the nail drags and rakes, incorporating it into the top ½ inch to 1 inch. You may want to spread the bags a little further apart. In wrapping up on the use of Turface, there are 3 other areas to address that use Turface in lesser amounts. Those areas are the base pass, where you want to use 2 to 3 bags worked in with a rake. If you can't cover the mound or home plate, Turface is very beneficial because it absorbs moisture, preventing a muddy mess. Use 1 bag on the mound and 2 bags behind home plate. Sometimes, as a result of a heavy downpour, you're faced with a puddling situation. I would recommend the use of Turface Quick Dry to correct this situation. Turface Quick Dry is an inorganic product. Unlike the old corncob products, which are organic and tend to cake, harden, smell, and then blow away, you'll notice that the product very quickly begins to take up the water, and the best part about the product is that it now becomes part of your infield and will continue to work for you time and time again. When taking care of your infield, there are key tools you should have on hand. I want to demonstrate the benefits of each. After practice or a game, take the time to get the field in shape for the next day. Ed will walk you through the mound and home plate maintenance. First, on at least a once-a-week basis, you should nail drag your infield. This particular nail drag is handmade and inexpensive. You can make this drag using 2x4s and 40-penny nails. The purpose of the nail drag is to loosen the top quarter inch of infield mix to keep the surface loose and friable. Second, drag your infield with a mat drag. I prefer a rigid drag because it does a better job of leveling the field. Dragging is a daily practice. Ollie is demonstrating proper dragging techniques. Always go slow at first along the edges. I prefer a lazy 8 pattern because it requires less turns. During your first pass, you might want to leave about a 6-inch buffer between the turf and infield to reduce dirt from getting into the grass. Just use a rake in this area. Alternate where you start and finish dragging from each day. For example, start at first base one day and third base the next. This will help prevent causing low areas on the skinned infields. Water is an important tool. It helps keep material in place, preventing dusting. I always water before games. The amount of water influences the way the ball moves. The more water, the slower the ball. Because Turface absorbs water and then slowly releases it in the field keeps moist longer. Be sure to hold the water nozzle at shoulder height so that it simulates falling rain. To prevent lips from forming on your infield grass, you must remove infield dirt from the turf areas. This can be done with a hose, brooming it back in, raking, or even a leaf blower, but get it out of the turf. If you already have a lip, you can take a sod cutter, remove the sod, take the dirt out from under the sod, level and replace. Let's talk about the turf in the infield. Ken Marock will address turf in general later on, so I just want to talk to you about mowing height and patterns. The mowing height is determined by whether the grass is a cool season or warm season grass. Warm season grasses such as Bermudas can tolerate a lower cut than can cool season grasses such as bluegrass. In cutting grass, don't remove more than 1/3 of leaf surface in one cutting. On this field, we have cut to a height of 1 inch using a checkerboard pattern. I recommend a real tight mower such as the one you see here. Make sure your cuts overlap so that a ridge of grass is not formed. The use of a pattern on the field adds to the cosmetics, and depending on how clever one is with a mower, it can be used as your signature. My favorite candlestick was the diamond pattern. The diamond is done by making the first cut from home plate to second base, then repeat back and forth. Then cut back and forth from first base to third base. One turf area often neglected is the collar around the mound. You want to keep the clay off the grass. Use an edger to create a channel around the collar. This prevents the clay from running into the grass. As you can see, this would be a real help on this field. As long as we're talking about edgers, let me show you an easy way to cut an edge around your infield. To get a really sharp line along your edges in an infield, the proper method would be to take a string and run it from behind first base to second base. Then to take a measure, or a yardstick if you have one available, and measure in 36 inches from this line. Now I'm going to move this line over to this peg, wrap it round, and run it down. This will give me a straight line, and I can then either use a power edger, or if I don't have a power edger, I simply can take a long-handled spade and just follow my line down the length of my infield grass.
Well, I'm going to show you some few basic maintenance procedures we do after a ball game and repairing the mound and bringing it back into shape again. I'll try to go through the steps one at a time for you. Doing this all by myself. After the ball game is over, you have the mound looks like this. What we're going to do is come in and we'll patch up in front of the pitching rubber. The first thing we're going to do is sweep out all the loose and dry materials. The next step we'll go through is just take the pick and loosen the material up in front of the rubber. You can use either end of it. Just loosen it up. And the reason we're doing this, so when we put the new clay in, it's going to bond together. And you don't have to dig real deep holes. I got to put a little bit of moisture in here to help the new material bond in. You don't need too much, just enough to moisten it. This pitching rubber was used quite a bit, so it's pretty deep in front of the pitching rubber. And we'll get it in shape before. And we'll try to tamp it down and see what we got. I generally try to tamp nice and easy at first, and then gradually, as it firms up, I start tamping a little harder. You notice I started tamping in the middle. Generally, when you put your material on and you start tamping, it has a tendency to spread out. So always start from the middle. And that's basically what we've done in front of the rubber. Now our next step is to go down into the landing area. And we're basically going to do the same thing. We'll get into the landing area, sweep out all the dry and loose material, loosen it up. We can put a little moisture in this, a little bit of water. This helps it bond together a little better. Now normally after I get that done, I'll take my watering bucket and my rake. We'll pour a little bit of moisture on top of what we already patched. We'll take the rake and drag some of the loose, dry material over the top. And that's to help keep somebody walking on it and sticking up in their feet on the bottom of their shoes, and it helps it to firm up overnight. In the home plate area, in the batter's boxes, where the batter stands and digs this big hole, you repair it exactly the same way. Water it down, cover it up, and it's ready for tomorrow. Maintenance on your baselines is relatively simple. You keep the baselines raked, you keep them edged clean, keep them dragged, and keep them firm. The runner gets a lot more speed with a firmer baseline.
Thanks, Ed. When people think of a baseball field, what usually comes to mind is the image of the diamond. But a lot of the game's action takes place in the outfield, and the outfield turf comes with its own set of maintenance challenges. As head groundskeeper for the Chicago Bears, Ken Marock is an expert on what it takes to keep grassy areas safe and strong even under the worst conditions. Let's join him now.
Thanks, Pat. What I'm holding here is a healthy piece of sod. You can't grow good turf if you don't grow good roots. Just like in football and soccer, constant trampling and heavy equipment can cause major turf problems by squeezing the soil particles, reducing the rate of movement of air, water, and nutrients through the soil. This compaction prevents grass roots from functioning normally. They become shallow, and eventually the turf will have to be replaced. I'm going to give you some tips on the procedures and equipment to prevent this from happening. As Barney mentioned, you may not have all of this equipment, but you can get access to it. Share your equipment. Ask your local park districts, golf courses, and schools to borrow it. We at the Bears use John Deere equipment, some of the best sports turf maintenance equipment on the market today. Aerification. The first maintenance practice that we are going to go over is aerification. All aerification is the turning over of the soil like our farmers. There are many benefits from aerification. Among these, it improves air and water movement throughout the soil, and it also gives nutrients an avenue to the roots. The roots can then take up these nutrients and get it to the top of the plant where the most benefit is derived. This can be done at any time during the growing season except for drought, extended high heat, or before an event. You cannot over-aerify a field, and of all our maintenance practices, aerification is the most important. There are many types of aerification devices on the market. There's a solid tine, a hollow tine, there's even a water-injected one. The ways that we do aerification is normally in two directions. First, we'll go one direction and diagonally cut over and do it a second time. You try to bring up as many plugs as possible. The easiest way to break down these plugs is the use of a drag mat, a cyclone fence, a broom, a rake, and this acts as a top dressing for your soil. It actually will break down, work within the soil, and it gives you that added nutrients and the top dressing that the soil needs. We're going to cover fertilization right now. Before you start a successful fertilization program, consult your local extension agent or fertilizer supplier for a soil test. They'll be happy to do that for you. Timing and rates will be covered also for your region. They will perform a soil test by taking a soil sample and sending it to a certified soil lab to determine what nutrient deficiencies you may have. The three main components of fertilizer are nitrogen for color and growth, phosphorus for root growth, and potassium for plant hardiness. Let me emphasize two of these. First of all, phosphorus is for faster root growth and seeding development. Potassium is to make plants hardier, give them more disease resistant, and be more drought tolerant. Seeding is the next step that we're going to go into. The proper seeding rates vary greatly from region to region. Again, I recommend that you talk to your local seed supplier. There are different ways to apply the seed. The easiest and most efficient is with the use of a slit seeder. This machine will give you positive seed-to-soil contact, making sure the seed is planted directly into the soil. If this is not possible, the best way is to take an iron rake, scratch up the surface, apply the seed, and lightly top dress it with peat moss or some topsoil. Top dressing is the perfect time to add native soil, sand, peat moss, or turface to your existing soil structure. This also will take care of small undulations you may have on your fields. The addition of a soil amendment like turface will greatly enhance drainage and the nutrient holding capacity of your soil structure. On the other hand, sand does not have these capabilities. A successful maintenance program would not be complete without a pesticide application program. What I mean by pesticides are herbicide for weed control, fungicides for control of fungi, and insecticide to control any unwanted pests in your turf area. Please be very cautious. These are to be applied by a licensed operator or applicator. You can hire a lawn care company if you are not licensed, but please follow instructions on the label to the letter. Next step is irrigation. Many of you may not be fortunate enough to have an underground irrigation system. I don't either. I use a travel rain or rain train sprinklers that travel along a cable pulling the hose behind it. These are great for athletic fields because they cover large areas in a reasonable amount of time. The most important thing about irrigation is do not irrigate frequently. This causes shallow rooting due to water staying up near the surface. It is better to water longer and less frequently, forcing the roots to seek the water out and promoting deeper root growth. For newly seeded areas, on the other hand, a light, frequent sprinkle is necessary to promote seed germination. Avoid puddling because this will displace the seed from where it was intended to be sown. Mowing is the next step that we're going to undertake. The key to mowing is not to remove more than 1/3 of the grass blade at one cutting. There are different types of mowers, a reel type or a rotary type. I recommend the reel type mower that we are using today because of the shearing action between the reel and the bed knife. It provides a more uniform cut. Many mowers are equipped with the cutting decks or reels in front of the wheels. These machines cut the grass before the wheels press it down. I can't emphasize enough the importance of keeping blades on your mower sharp. This will give it a truer cut and minimize damage to the plant. There are times when you might have to cut daily, but just remember the 1/3 rule I mentioned earlier. Lastly, I prefer to leave my clippings because they are 80% water and there are nutrients present in these clippings. Problem areas occur always after an event. What I normally do is go over the entire field. Replace all the divots that might be kicked out from your athletes. This is very important to do. You have to replace all your divots. When you have these imperfections, you might have a little undulation left. I always keep a mixture of Turface, native soil, and seed ready to go. I apply this to these areas, working it in by hand. It's a lot easier if you have a shovel and you put it on the back of your pickup truck or something like that, or Cushman cart. Just lay it in there, fill in all the areas, take a rake, work that in to keep the field nice and level, then water it lightly. This will help you because you're replacing the damage as it has been occurring. The last thing I want to emphasize is to work with your coach to get the most use out of your entire field. Rotate practices from one end to the other. If you have a problem area that you're working on, try to have the coach stay away from that area for at least a week to give it time to recuperate. Good luck with your sports fields.
We have discussed a lot about maintenance and how to keep your field in the best and safest condition possible, which, remember, can be done on a regular basis in less than 30 minutes. But there are also some other important areas we want to mention. We all know that player safety is number one and that liability has become a major issue. So let's cover a few player and spectator safety tips. As I said earlier, we walk the field every day before and after practice. Since the fields are generally unsupervised, we want to check for potential problems such as broken or uncovered sprinkler heads, broken glass, or any other hazards that would pose a danger for the players. A good example of a field safety issue is how to mark your foul lines. We see here a fire hose being used for the outfield foul marker. I would prefer to use chalk or paint because not a risk of players tripping and falling during play. Here we have a well-built dugout, except that I would like to see some padded fencing for player protection from a line drive or a fielder chasing a foul ball. Besides the players themselves, your fans deserve a safe place to watch and enjoy the game. Have somebody check the areas such as the bleachers to keep them in good repair so that they are safe and comfortable. Make sure the perimeter fence is properly installed with the sharp edges down and the rounded edges on top. You'd be surprised how many fences are installed upside down. Notice how the top of this fence has been painted with a bright color. We prefer to use an orange or bright yellow for highest visibility. This is a good thing to do to your fence as it serves as a clear indicator of the home run line and makes the fence more visible for the player and the umpire. Many of you may feel that you are over your heads in managing your field. Let me share with you some tips that I use for field maintenance. First of all, I assign my players areas of responsibilities. Outfielders are responsible for the outfield, infielders for the infield, so on. This encourages your players to take real pride in their part. I know many communities that charge a discounted fee for those parents who choose to become involved in maintaining the field. Finally, I would suggest whoever is responsible for maintaining your field, keep good records. For example, when and what kind of fertilizer was used, how often irrigation has been done. This will serve as a reference for future caretakers, a record of successes and failures, and proof that you have taken proper steps to provide a safe playing field for those athletes. So there you have it, what it takes to maintain your field in perfect playing condition. Thanks Ed, Barney, and Ken for sharing your expertise with us today. If you have any other questions of these experts, please contact them through Turface 1-800 number at the end of this video. Though it may seem overwhelming, remember, choosing the right products and equipment and keeping up with the simple routines is what can really make the difference. If you care about your team, if you want to make your sports program the best it can be, then now's the time to get your field in shape. Your efforts will mean a great deal to the players, young and old, who are learning the rules and having the fun. Why not give them the playing field that can really make their dreams come true? So let's play ball.